Sambhavami Mamaya. He explains that he is not born like you and I are born because we accept material bodies. He explains, although I am unborn, and my body, Krishna is saying, is transcendental and it never deteriorates. We don't have that experience in our bodies. Our bodies always deteriorate. So Krishna is saying, although I am unborn and my transcendental body, which is made of eternity, knowledge and bliss, never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every age in my original transcendental form. So Krishna's form is transcendental. It means it's not of this material world. Because what's the difference between matter and spirit? Matter has temporary form. It's always changing. This microphone wasn't always a microphone. It was some metal and plastic and different things before, and it won't always stay a microphone. And the same goes with our bodies, or our cars, or our houses, even this earth, even this universe. They're all temporary forms. But Krishna's form is not made of matter, because Krishna's form is not temporary. It's pure spirit. It's eternal. And Krishna's form is not like ours, where we have to undergo so many miseries. We have to get old and diseased and die. Nobody enjoys these things. Even taking birth, what's the first thing that kids do when they're born? Ah! It's a painful experience. And it goes on in life. And not only that, Krishna's form is not full of miseries, it's full of bliss. And our search for understanding and knowledge carries on throughout our lives. We need to learn how to do so many things, because we're born, but we don't even know how to drink our mother's milk from her breast. And we gradually have to learn so many things each and every life. But Krishna's body is the embodiment of full knowledge. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, he says, I know everything that has happened in the past. I know everything that is happening in the present. And I know everything that is yet to be. But me, no one knows. But Krishna is revealing himself to his devotees, because he explains that actually, if you want to know me, I can be known as I am by no other means than bhakti, devotional service. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. By no other means can I be understood. So, understanding Krishna's transcendental form is very significant. And how does Krishna explain this in Bhagavad Gita? Well, he uses his wonderful unlimited wisdom to explain about himself by, first of all, explaining about us. Because he starts to explain how we are different from these bodies. How for the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. And that the soul living inside this body is unborn. It's only the body that takes the birth. But the soul is a very different story. And you may have sometimes had the experience of spotting some hair on the floor, yes? Now if you take that hair and you take the very, very tip of that hair and you cut it into 100 pieces, and then take one of those pieces, one of those 100 pieces of the very tip of a hair, and again cut it into 100 pieces, that, according to the Veda, is the size of the spirit soul inside the body. And yet here we are, under the impression, oh, this is me. This is who I am. But actually this body, which is always changing, is illuminated only by the presence of this very subtle, tiny, spiritual spark of Krishna. And we are eternal, We are unborn. We're always looking for knowledge. We're always looking for happiness because that's our real nature. Because Krishna's explaining, Mamaivam so jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. This spirit soul is eternal because it's a little particle of me. That's why we're eternal, because we're little particles of Krishna. So here's the thing, we're eternal, we're by nature full of knowledge, otherwise why do we look to understand? We're by nature full of pleasure, otherwise why do we look to become happy? There's no meaning to our lives unless we're actually looking for happiness, otherwise we might be just a stone, but a living person wants pleasure. Why? Because that's our nature, and because that's Krishna's nature. And our real nature can be experienced just like the spark can retain its wonderful, bright, shining qualities, not when it falls out of the fire, but in the association of the fire. So the spiritual spark, the little part of the soul of Krishna, retains its original blissful, eternal, full of knowledge, spiritual qualities by being in association with Krishna. So this is the process. And in order to understand about Krishna, it's not possible by our mental speculation to try to figure out what is Krishna. But in order to understand Krishna, Krishna is very kindly explaining about himself. He's giving us transcendental knowledge so that we can understand who we are, and what we are, and where we are, and why we are, and where we're supposed to be. Because here we are as eternal spirit souls, experiencing birth, old age, disease, and death, where these things are not meant for the soul. The soul is actually meant to be living in not the temporary, miserable, ignorant, material atmosphere, but the eternal, blissful, fully cognizant spiritual atmosphere with Krishna. So this Hare Krishna movement is actually meant for helping us revive our dormant consciousness. Dormant, why? Because eternal means what? It means we exist now, but it means we've always existed. But we've forgotten. And we always will exist. So our business is to revive what we have forgotten. And this is what Srila Prabhupada very kindly came to the West to give us back our lives. Give us back our eternal relationship with Krishna. And we do that, how do we see Krishna? Well, it begins with hearing about him. Krishna's giving us this means, just like even in a school or college or university, we learn so much just by, not just by seeing, but by hearing from the expert guide who can give us instruction to help us see things properly, to become aware of whatever scientific path we're trying to pursue. But if we want to pursue the spiritual path, on the path back home, back to Godhead, then one requires to get the expert professor who is expert in the spiritual science. So Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita, this is Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. It's the it's the topmost of all science. It's the Raja Vidya, it's the king of knowledge, the king of education. And it's also Raja Guyam, it's the most confidential knowledge, because it's not available, sadly, in your college or school or university, unless of course the Hare Krishnas go there and start explaining it. Then it becomes opened up, it becomes starting to be available. And as the more we pursue this spiritual science and try to understand our relationship with Krishna, actually we experience that this is good stuff, this is blissful. And the more we apply the science, sorry about that, Zanusi, the principle is that we experience transcendental bliss by trying to serve Krishna and being engaged in Krishna consciousness. So currently we're misidentifying with these temporary bodies and minds, and not experiencing transcendental bliss. But the more we actually experience and appreciate the real loving relationship which exists between one person and another, that temporary apparent love within this material world will be finished today or tomorrow. But because we're eternal, and because Krishna is eternal, and because we're all persons, and Krishna is a person, and he's the supreme person, the source of all pleasure and knowledge and love, Krishna is wanting to share that love. Just like any parent, they naturally want to share love with their children. So Krishna, he naturally wants to share love with us. But if a child leaves home, what to do? But the path back home should be there. So that just like some of us may have experienced, not so much in the Indian culture, but when a child leaves home, they forget all about their parents for some time. But as soon as the reconnection is made, immediately the relationship is revived. So this is the process, to revive our Krishna consciousness by the nice process of Shravanam, hearing, and Kirtanam, chanting. Actually, Kirtanam doesn't mean just chanting. Kirtanam means also explaining. And the devotees, they become very enlivened when they have a chance to explain to others about Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada's books, which are giving us this understanding, are the sweetest kirtan, because Prabhupada is explaining to us the whole science of Krishna, making it very accessible to all of us. So we're encouraging everybody to read and study carefully these nice books. They're very nice to read. They're very illuminating, they're very blissful, they're very jolly. We have this nice Krishna book. Has anybody here read something of the Krishna book? Please raise your hands, a few of you. Okay. I would heartily recommend you get yourselves a copy of the Krishna book, because in there, the whole pastime of Govardhan Leela, Krishna lifting Govardhan hill on his little finger for a whole week, is beautifully described over 4 chapters. It's very nice reading. And this Krishna book is one of the first books that Prabhupada gave us. I remember I joined the temple back in 1971, and in 1972 I was living in the London temple. And in those days, the only literatures we had available to pass out to people on the streets were the Back to Godhead magazines, which was great because that was what I read first of all. But then, one day, after coming back from chanting and dancing down Oxford Street, we found the basement where is our prasadam room. It was full of all these boxes. I thought, what on earth are in all these boxes? And somebody opened one up, and it was full of these beautiful big silver Krishna books. I thought, wow, what are these? These are amazing. Never seen these before. And I asked, what are we going to do with all these boxes and boxes of books? And the other devotee, he said, oh, we're going to distribute them on the streets. I thought, wow, this is amazing. So this is what we started doing. We had no idea how to do it, but somehow or other, we started trying to take these out, and we travel around the country, and we go on Oxford Street and everywhere, offering people these nice silver Krishna books, and people were so attracted to them. So many people wanted to buy them, and now they've had to be reprinted and reprinted and reprinted. And this was, you ever heard of the Beatles? George Harrison, he was known as the spiritual Beatle. He wrote the foreword for this book, and he paid for them, actually. That was a very nice service. Prabhupada really appreciated his nice service that he did. George also, he was the one who purchased Bhaktivedanta Manor for us. So he was a very special devotee, and Prabhupada really appreciated him. So much so that at the time of Prabhupada's disappearance, we were celebrating Prabhupada's disappearance day yesterday. Prabhupada left at 7:26 p.m. Back in 1977. But actually, before he departed, he took off his ring and said, "Give this to George." He really appreciated George's service. So anyway, we're here to talk about Govardhan Pooja. Please, Abhyanko Krishna Prabhu, keep me posted about my time frame because I can easily go on a long time. How long have I got now? Just to give me a clue. 20 minutes. Okay, we better do this quickly. All right. So Govardhan Pooja, very special adventure. Krishna had so many adventures. And one of the things Krishna wanted to do was he wanted to establish very, very clearly that there are so many demigods in this world who can provide all sorts of material facilities because they're also material living beings. They're living on higher planets. Just like we experience sometimes there's an education department or a criminal justice department, and you don't often see the people behind those. They're living, but they're managing the affairs. Educational department, how often do you see the Minister of Education? Usually only if he's in trouble over some scandal or other. But you might see him on the news. But the idea being that behind all the functions of this material world, there are so many demigods. How many? 33 crores. 330 million different demigods. If you think of it like this, how many civil servants does it take to run Cambridge or to run the UK? There are hundreds of them. So just imagine how many it takes to run the universe. So many civil servants, the demigods, in charge of the different aspects. But sometimes, you know, when people have powerful positions, it kind of goes to the head and people become a little puffed up and think, yes, I'm so important. And this happens also with the demigods sometimes. Sometimes they think, well, actually, we're the controllers. They forget that Krishna is actually their boss. He's the supreme boss. He's the chief. So the Svetasvatara Upanishad explains Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. That there are many eternal living beings, and here we are inhabiting temporary bodies. But amongst all the eternal living beings, Krishna is one of them. But the difference is, he's the chief. Krishna is the boss. And all the demigods are working under his direction. Now there happens to be, in a civilly organized society, there's a head of all the departments, and the head of the departments is the Prime Minister, or if you like, the king. It used to be kings when they were worth their salt as kings. But the king of all the devas, the king of all the demigods, is known as Indra, and we can see his effects working outside. He's in charge of the rain. So thank you, Indra Prabhu, Hare Krishna. But he became a little proud and puffed up, thinking that he was all in all. And Krishna, he wanted to do two things. Well, actually, he achieved many things just with one little finger, actually. But he wanted to bring Indra back down to reality. He wanted to crush Indra's false pride and turn it into powder. So it was finished. So he devised a wonderful pastime. And at the same time, he wanted to establish for all the devotees that there is no need to worship any demigods. And this is one thing Krishna, he very nicely, well, let me explain what happened. In order to enact this pastime, Krishna, he saw that all the inhabitants of Braj in Vrindavan, all the cowherd men, they were preparing a big sacrifice. And of course, the ladies, they were all cooking so much nice offerings for the sacrifice. And Krishna, seeing all this going on, he thought, okay, he's just a little boy, 7 years old, right? And he's asking his father, my dear father, Nanda, please tell me, what is this you're doing when you're preparing all these things? And Nanda Maharaj, she's thinking, well, Krishna's just a little boy, he won't really understand all these things. So he didn't say anything. But then the other elders, Krishna was asking everyone, what's all this about? And they explained that actually this is a sacrifice to please Indra. Because after all, we're cowherd community. We depend on the rain so that we have nice grasses to feed the cows and to grow our vegetables and grains. So we're appreciating Indra's contribution to our livelihood, to making it possible that we can actually have a livelihood here, looking after the cows. And Krishna is inquiring, so is this a Vedic instruction that you do this Indra Puja? Or is this some traditional thing, or what is it? So Nanda Maharaj, he said, yes, it's a traditional thing. And we do this just to show our respects to Indra. So in order for Krishna to establish pure devotional service for his devotees, not mixed with any worship of any demigods, that's pure devotional service, just actually with pure love for Krishna. Krishna, interestingly enough, he started talking like an atheist. He started explaining to Nanda Maharaj that actually Indra, he can only give the results of his work, the results of our work, if he's authorized by his boss, by the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, he can't do anything. And anyway, the rains, they come even where they're not needed. They come on the ocean, and they come on the hills and the rocks. So if Indra even exists, we don't need to worship him. Rather, we should think about Govardhan Hill, because Govardhan Hill is providing beautiful grasses for feeding our cows. And actually, Govardhan Hill is giving us nice shelter. We're getting so many minerals. We play there. The cows are looked after so nicely. Actually, we're dependent on Govardhan Hill, so we should forget about Indra. All these ingredients you've collected for the sacrifice, all this wonderful arrangement, we should actually forget about Indra and use this for worshipping Govardhan Hill. So Krishna's explaining so many things, and if you read these chapters in the Krishna book, you'll find such a beautiful explanation of all these points, of how Krishna is this little boy, because everybody loves Krishna in Vrindavan so much. They love Krishna even more than their own children. And they're listening to Krishna speaking like this, and they think, Krishna, what do you want? And Krishna's saying, yes, we should worship Govardhan Hill, take all these ingredients, have a nice Indra Yajna, Govardhan Yajna, Govardhan Puja, and we should worship the cows and the Brahmins, we should feed everyone with sumptuous prasadam, and we can make all our offerings to Govardhan Hill, and then we'll be very, very much benefited. So the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, they say, all right, Krishna, well, how would you like us to do this? So Krishna explains, yes, you make all varieties of nice preparations, dal and grains, rice, and all sorts of milk preparations and vegetables. You make rabri, sandesh, rasgullas, so many nice dishes, sweet rice, and you offer them to Govardhan Hill. So the cowherd community, they all agreed. They thought, okay, this is a lovely idea. So they started making this nice Indra Puja. They did the yajna, the sacrifice, for Govardhan Hill, for the pleasure of Govardhan. And they offered all the wonderful dishes that they'd made. They brought all their stock of food they had, all the grains and everything. They cooked so many nice dishes, and they offered them on Govardhan Hill. And this is still going on today. I was just seeing how Radhanath Maharaj in Vrindavan is there, and he's there with thousands of devotees, and they made over 3,000 preparations and offered them to Govardhan Hill. It's really blissful, actually. Apparently it's on YouTube, you can check this out. But they had a lovely, lovely festival. And then they're all circumambulating Govardhan Hill. And what they do as well is they have truckloads of bananas. And the monkeys there are all eagerly waiting. They're very well behaved, actually. because they wait until the signal is given, and then they all come and help themselves to the bananas. They have a lovely time. So anyway, they have made all these lovely offerings for Govardhan. And then Krishna was very pleased with the way this is done. And then Krishna assumed separately a gigantic form of himself. And he declared to everyone there that I am Govardhan Hill. And he proceeded to eat all the offerings. He ate everything. And then he said, Aniyor, bring more. But they didn't have any more. So somebody very kindly brought one tulsi leaf and offered this to big Krishna. And he accepted it. And he said, oh, now I'm very satisfied. Because tulsi is so dear to Krishna. So then the devotees circumambulated Govardhan Hill, which we can also do a little bit later. We can actually offer our respect to Govardhan Hill by circumambulating, walking around like that. And the devotees were very, very happy. One person wasn't happy, Indra. He was really cheesed off. He said, what? This talkative little boy? He's got them to stop my puja. How dare he? He's made me so angry. I'm going to smash them. I'm going to smash their livelihood and teach them a darn good lesson. And so he called, because he's in charge of the rain. And you may know that every now and again in this material world there's a devastation where the rain comes down very heavily, and you know, sometimes you see there's a flood and you can't tell the difference between the land and the water because it's all water. And the floods come at the time to devastate the whole universe up to the very highest planets. So Krishna called for the Samvartika clouds who were responsible for this, and he directed them, you go to Vrindavan and you pour water on everything and smash the cows and their livelihood and everything. And the Samvartika clouds were, really? You want us to do that? Are you sure? And you said, yes, don't worry. I'll go and I'll accompany you with my trident and my elephant, and together we'll destroy the livelihood of these Brijvasis and the cows. Whoa, pretty heavy stuff. So the Samvartika clouds went, accompanied by Indra, and they were pouring torrents of rain, like pillars of rain, you know, not just like we get here in the UK, but pillars of rain. And it was pouring down. And the inhabitants of Braj, they could understand, oh, Indra is really mad at us. Krishna, please help us. You asked us to stop the Indra Puja, and now he's so angry. He's sending all this heavy rain. What are we to do? The cows are suffering. The animals are suffering. We're in real trouble. So Krishna, he demonstrated his wonderful abilities. He said, all right, don't worry. And he went to Govardhan Hill. And just like a child picks up a little mushroom, not difficult, Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill and held it up on his pinky, on his little finger, and he said, don't be afraid, come bring all your cows and your possessions, come and take shelter under the hill, and don't be afraid and think that it's going to fall from my hand. So the cowherd community, they're all very dependent on little Krishna. They love Krishna so much, and they're seeing Krishna's lifting this hill. Wow, this is extraordinary. All right, let's go. And everyone came under the shelter of Govardhan Hill. And Krishna's holding it up like a big umbrella. And Govardhan was very blissful because Govardhan Hill is also Haridas Varya. He's the greatest servant of Krishna. He's so pleasing to Krishna because he provides nice grasses for the cows. He provides a nice playground for all the cowherd boys. The devotees, they have so much nice time there playing with Krishna. They decorate themselves with the minerals from Govardhan Hill, even after their mothers have decorated them very nicely to go out to the pasturing grounds and play with Krishna every day. So there they are underneath the hill, and they're thinking, Krishna, your arm must be getting tired. Could you change hands and let us massage your arm? Or maybe you could let Sridham hold it up for a bit, because he's very strong. And Krishna's just enjoying, and the cowherd men, they're all holding up their sticks to try and help Krishna hold up Govardhan hill. And Mother Yasoda, she's really shocked to see a little boy holding up the hill and thinking, my gosh, what's going on here? But she was convinced that actually it wasn't Krishna holding up the hill. She thought it was Nanda Maharaj who was holding it up, really. And Krishna's just pretending to hold it up. And the cowherd boys, they're saying, let's, Krishna, switch hands and then we can massage your arm so you don't feel tired. And it's wonderful because they're there. And usually it's so difficult for the inhabitants of Braj because Krishna's out in the pasturing ground in the daytime and they don't get to see Krishna and be with Krishna. And the cowherd boys are lamenting because at night they're at home, but Krishna's off doing nice rasalila and so many things at night. And so the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they're missing Krishna in the day and they're missing Krishna in the night. But this time, they all got to spend a whole week without experiencing any hunger and thirst with Krishna underneath Govardhan hill. They're having wonderful pastimes underneath the hill for a whole week, uninterruptedly. And meanwhile, the rain's trickling down either side of Govardhan hill, and nobody's experienced any difficulty. And Govardhan himself is experiencing great transcendental bliss because he's being held up by Krishna's finger and he's feeling as light as a feather. And in this way, the pastimes are going on for a whole week. And Indra, what's going on here? I've sent my worst clouds to destroy them. And they're not feeling the slightest discomfort. What is going on here? And finally, he comes to his senses and he realizes, uh-oh, I have blown it. This little talkative boy is actually Krishna. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's my boss. Oops. This is serious. And he calls off the Samvartika clouds. And he's thinking, what on earth to do? And meanwhile, the clouds stop and the inundation subsides. And Krishna tells everyone, all right, the rain has stopped, the flooding has gone. Now we can all go back. So they don't want to leave Krishna, but Krishna's saying, no, please now go back to your home. And then Krishna, he replaces Govardhan hill exactly as it was before. And Indra, meanwhile, he's in trouble. You realize he's really blown it. And he's thinking, Krishna's going to be really upset with me. So he's thinking what to do now. So he goes and asks Lord Brahma, who's the head of all the demigods. He's the source of all the living beings in the universe, actually, through the Prajapatis who are generated from Brahma. And Brahma advises him, you better go and apologize to Krishna, but better you take a great devotee with you, because then Krishna will be pleased and he might forgive you. So Krishna, he takes one of the Surabi cows from the heavenly planets, because Krishna is a cowherd boy, and all the other cows, they're actually ultimately descendants of Surabi. So Surabi comes with Krishna, and with her milk she bathes little Krishna. Indra, he comes to a secluded place because it's kind of an embarrassing situation. So he comes to a secluded place and starts offering his prayers to Krishna. And Surabi, on behalf of Indra, starts offering her prayers, and she says, I know he tried to kill all my descendants, and he's been a nonsense, but he's come to his senses now. So please, my dear Krishna, please forgive him. And Krishna, he is satisfied, and Surabhi is bathing Krishna with the milk, and Indra's elephant Airavata with his trunk is taking water from the Jamuna and giving Indra a good bath, bathing him. And in this way, everyone's becoming nicely purified, and Krishna becomes satisfied. And he tells Indra, my dear Indra, you should always remember that you are my eternal servant. And not only you, but all the other demigods of whom you are the king, they are also my eternal servants. So please don't forget this. So Indra, he offers his prayers, quite relieved, and goes back home, back to his heavenly abode. So this pastime is meant to help us understand that in order to make progress in life, we should understand that we don't need to worship any demigods. Krishna established this very firmly, that actually one only needs to worship their boss, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of everyone. And in this way, that he declared that everyone should observe this Govardhan Pooja festival. And he's saying how to do it. And he's also advising, by the way, that if people don't do that, and there are many snakes on Govardhan Hill, and they'll come and bite you. But actually by doing so, Krishna himself becomes very pleased. And because Krishna is the root of all existence, when you water the root, automatically all the other parts of the tree, immediately all the leaves, branches, twigs, everyone is completely satisfied and nourished. You don't have to try and water each individual different leaf. You pour water on the root, and then the tree is nourished. Similarly, as we'll all experience later, that when you take the prasadam and put the food in the mouth, in the stomach, then all the parts of the body are nourished. There's no difficulty. It's very simple. So this is the process. If we try to satisfy Krishna, then actually everyone becomes very satisfied, and all the necessities of life are provided. This is a fact. No need to go. I know in some countries, I won't say India, it's very popular to bribe the government ministers and try to get some benefit. But actually there is no need. We don't have to bribe the demigods by trying to worship them to get some temporary benefit. If we simply satisfy Krishna, then all the necessities of life will be provided, and there's no difficulty. So this Govardhan Puja is a very special, lovely festival. It's one of the most exciting festivals. And how long have we got, Abhyanka Krishna Prabhu? 5 minutes, okay. Right, let's do something different. Let's have questions and answers. Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? And we'll try to give you answers. So please don't feel free. I don't bite unless I've got a plate of prasada. So please do ask questions. Who's first? And maybe you have a microphone. Yeah. Okay, we have a question over here. Is it switched on?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. It's not a question, it's just kind of thinking of my mind. So basically, why Indo takes 7 days to find this is a Krishna and giving the rain?
Well, because good pastimes, they can last a while. And it took a while for Indra because he was so puffed up. It took a while for him to come to his senses and call off the rain clouds. And you might know that formerly, Lord Brahma, he'd also played a trick on Krishna, and he'd stolen all the calves and cowherd boys. And he'd stolen them for a whole year. And it took only a moment in Brahma's time, but a whole year in our time, for Brahma to realize, oops, Krishna's my boss and I'm playing with fire here. And he came back after a moment of his time. But during that time, Krishna had expanded himself as all the carts and cowherd boys, and they were all playing so their mothers didn't feel upset. All the calves, Krishna expanded himself as all the calves and all the cowherd boys, so even their mothers couldn't tell the difference between them and the original. And they all increased their love for Krishna so much. But when Brahma came to offer his prayers, he couldn't really tell if Krishna was satisfied or not, because he offered so many prayers and obeisances. And then he said, "Can I go now?" And he couldn't be sure if Krishna had actually forgiven him, because Krishna just sort of gestured, "You can go." But with Indra, although he'd done so much to try to destroy all the cows and the livelihood of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, it wasn't very difficult for him to be forgiven. So why is that? The reason is because it was actually a jolly pastime that Krishna could spend a whole week with all his devotees under the hill, and they could all be with Krishna the whole time, and they had lots of fun underneath the hill. So for that reason, it was easier to forgive Indra than it was to forgive Brahma. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, any other question or comment anyone would like to ask? Someone? Please don't be shy. We'd love to hear your questions. Anyone? You raising your hand? Okay. Anyway, so we hope you find this enlivening and interesting and helpful to understand what is this Krishna consciousness movement. It's not simply some sentimental thing. It's actually a transcendental science. This Vedic knowledge is complete, and your culture is such that you may not realize it, but actually you've come to the West for another reason than you may think. Because it's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order that Bharat Bhuvite Hoila Manusya Janma Jar Janma Sarthaka Karikara Bharat, that actually, as I'm sure you're aware, as in the human form of life, we have to perform welfare work. Is it not? We have to perform welfare, not just for our families, but for the community, for the society in general. And not just upakar, but pada upakar, that topmost welfare work, is to give others understanding about Krishna and about our eternal relationship with Krishna. Understanding beginning with the difference between the body and the soul. Because if we don't understand that, then the rest of spiritual understanding won't make any sense. So we need to understand the science, beginning with that very carefully. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he brought this Hare Krishna movement to the whole world. And Prabhupada, as Lord Chaitanya's representative, coming in disciplic succession, brought this to the Western society. He was asked, one lone Indian, please spread these teachings in the English language. And Lord Chaitanya, he explained it's the duty of everyone from the land of India especially to make their own lives perfect and to make others perfect. So that is your responsibility. Now you're here in the West. The reason you've come may appear to be this and that and the other, but actually the real duty, the real reason for you coming here is to help others understand about Krishna. So please take this very nicely, take it seriously, try to understand about Krishna, share, discuss. It's not just people from the Indian community who can understand about Krishna consciousness. Even Dorigos like myself, Westerners, we can also begin to understand and help others understand. So Prabhupada was one Indian person coming to the West. But there are so many who can also do this. You're all intelligent, ladies and gentlemen. So please, take this seriously, take up Krishna consciousness, and practice it, and help others understand. This will make everyone's lives, your own lives, and everyone else's lives who you benefit from this, very nice and successful. People become happy, the civilization can actually become peaceful and happy and well provided for in every sense. I'll give a nice example. Tribhanganand Prabhu, he's a jolly Irishman, and he's very nicely doing so much service. You know, sometimes people, they struggle, they think, how are we going to feed everyone in the family? And they struggle to feed and put food on the table. But Tribhanganand Prabhu is a very nice devotee. He brings the Rathayatra chariot with him here to Cambridge. And he feeds, free of charge, 2,000 people every day. And he still makes a profit. Hare Krishna. That's good business. He's spreading Krishna consciousness. And Krishna is providing abundant necessities of life. There's no difficulty. How is that possible? Because if we try to do something for Krishna, Krishna appreciates. And the demigods who are in charge of all these facilities of life, they cooperate. Nature cooperates. So here's another point, last point. Mother Nature is providing for all of us. So as everyone knows, a mother cannot produce a child without the father. So Mother Nature, all the living beings born of Mother Nature, who's the daddy? That's Krishna. It's very simple. It's very easy to understand. There must be a Supreme Father behind Mother Nature. So just like we see sometimes beautiful nature working in so many different ways. Yes, you've appreciated nice, beautiful scenery or nature working. Hey, not like our programs where people tend to come a little bit late, but the sun rises on time, exactly at the right time every day. These are nature's workings. But, you know, you see a beautiful painting, and you see a Monet or a Picasso or some famous painting, but there's a signature down the bottom. When you see some beautiful aspect of nature, look for the signature. But here's the point. When you see the beautiful painting, you don't think, oh, that brush is really amazing. It's done such a wonderful painting. Do you give credit to the brush, or do you give credit to the artist? So nature is the brush, but the artist is Krishna. So we should give credit where credit is due, and see Krishna's hand everywhere in our lives, because he's asking us to do these four things. Manmana, Bhava Madbhakta, Madhyaji, Mam Namaskaru. Always think of me, Krishna is saying. Difficult to think of Krishna unless we regularly hear about it. Bhava Madbhakta, become Krishna's bhakta, Krishna's devotee. Madhyaji, Krishna is saying, worship me, which we're going to do with Govardhan Hill. And Mam Namaskaru, offer your obeisances, your homage to me. What is the result? Mam evaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Krishna is saying, in this way you do these four things. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. And Krishna says, surely you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my very dear friend. Krishna is the friend of everyone. Even though we forget all about it, he's still providing all the necessities of life. He's still accompanying with us as the super soul, even though we've forgotten all about it. in every species of life. But he's still our friend, and he comes with us every step of the way. Otherwise, how do you get your karma unless Krishna's witnessing what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're desiring? So we should know that Krishna is the dearmost friend of everyone. He's our dearmost friend. And if we develop that relationship, then we'll always be very happy and taken care of. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Giri Govardhan ki
Jai.
Nitai Go